Tada Mahyam Dadati Supadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam. Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajeevam. Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Harite Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshatani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vansadi Gauravakta Branda Mukam Karoti Vatsalam Pangam Langhaya Degiram Yatkripata Mande Shri Gurum Vintarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hare Krishna. So today we have an interesting chapter about the three gunas, which is Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. And we want to just quickly look at chapter 13, because chapter 13 is a little bit of a technical chapter, a little difficult to understand. And Krishna has already explained these concepts earlier, but he's going to do it in a little bit more detail. So the 6 questions that Arjuna is posing to Krishna, which is what is Kshetra, who is Kshetrajna, who is Purusha, what is Prakriti, and the difference between Jnana and Jnana. So if you have to look at it differently, you could say in this particular chapter, Krishna is analyzing the universe, which is the Prakriti. He is analyzing the Jivatma. The Jivatma is Purusha and Paramatma is also Purusha. So he's analyzing the nature of God also. So Prakriti, Jivatma and Purusha are analyzed in a little bit more detail in this particular chapter. So, it takes time for us to understand the Bhagavad Gita. It's not possible to understand the Bhagavad Gita in 1 sitting, 2 sittings, 3 sittings. It may take a lifetime to understand the nuances of the Bhagavad Gita. But as we said, you have to approach this knowledge through Guru Parampara. So it just goes to show you that Prakriti is very hard to understand, and the Param Purusha is also very difficult to understand. There is a nice pastime of Srila Prabhupada with his 2 wonderful disciples, His Grace Madhudvisha Prabhu and Her Grace Jamuna Mataji. 2 wonderful disciples of Prabhupada. They both had a different opinion about Krishna and Balaram. So His Grace Madhudvisha Prabhu and Jamuna Mataji approached Prabhupada. They asked Prabhupada, can you clarify our doubt? So Madhudvisha Prabhu said, Krishna and Balaram, they are different. And Prabhupada said, yes, they are different. Then Jamuna Mataji said, but Prabhupada, Krishna and Balaram are one and the same. And he said, yes, you are right. So the Prabhu had said Krishna and Balaram are different, to which Prabhupada agreed. The Mataji had said Krishna and Balaram are different. And even to this Prabhupada agreed. So was Prabhupada right to agree with both of them? Because if Prabhupada agrees with both of them, that means there is some contradiction here. And yes, there is a contradiction, but at the same time, it's the truth. Krishna and Balaram are not different because Balaram comes from Krishna. Krishna and Balaram are different because Krishna is Savior Bhagavan, that means he accepts service. And Balaram is Sevak Bhagavan. Balaram teaches us how to offer service. So one personality is always accepting service, which is Krishna. One personality is always serving, and that is Balaram. So, yes, Krishna and Balaram are one and the same. And yes, Krishna and Balaram are different. They are one and the same because Krishna is the origin of Balaram. But they're not the same because their nature is different. So, there's a nice pastime of a guru with his disciple. The process of learning can take a long time, but the more you hear, the more you get purified and the more you will get your realizations. So one day a guru asked his disciple, can you go fetch me some water in this particular bucket? You go to the river and fetch the water for me. But the only problem was the guru gave the shishya a bucket with a lot of holes in it. So shishya means you have to obey. You can't question, challenge guru. You have to be careful if you do want to get some clarity. You have to be very careful. So anyway, the shishya runs to the river, tries to fill the bucket with water. By the time he reaches his guru, all of the water has fallen through the holes, so there's no water in the bucket. So the guru was very patient. He said, don't worry, go and try. And so the shishya runs off to the river again. And this time he runs faster to get back to his guru in time so that there'll be at least some water in the bucket. But no matter how fast he ran, there was no water in the bucket by the time he reached the guru. The guru said, no problem, you go back, try once again. And he tries the third time and the same thing happens. There's no water in the bucket. So now the shishya is thinking, okay, why is my guru asking me to go fetch water in a bucket that has so many holes? He knows it's impossible for me to get the bucket with some water back to him. At which point the guru understood that even though the disciple had not asked the question, nevertheless the disciple was thinking of that question. Why is my guru asking me to fetch water? So the guru explained that, have you noticed the difference in the basket? And the disciple said, yes. The guru asked, what is the difference? The guru said, the shishya said, when you gave me the basket, it was dirty. By the time I went to the river and brought you back or tried to bring you back the water, the third time the bucket had become really clean. Meaning, no matter how many times we hear the Bhagavad Gita, there are certain things we may not capture, like the hole in the bucket through which the water slips away. There is holes in our consciousness that allows this information, knowledge to slip away as well. But that is not the point. Even if you don't understand, if you don't recollect, if you're not able to contemplate on what was discussed on any given day, still your heart is getting cleansed. So even though that bucket was not able to retain the water because of the holes, nevertheless the bucket got cleansed. So how many ever times you hear Harikatha and how many ever times you listen to the Bhagavad Gita, your heart is getting cleansed. So at some point in time, the Lord will reveal himself to you. That means the transformation is taking place for sure. The transformation of the heart, the transformation of the consciousness is certainly happening. That you should not doubt at all. It will happen. And you'll be amazed how many questions of yours will get answered, how many doubts of yours will get answered. Because the Lord knows what the doubts are in your heart. And through the lips of the person taking that session, somehow or the other, magically, inconceivably, you get the answer. When Krishna defines knowledge, he is actually defining the 20 qualities of a devotee here. And one thing that we said, what is essential is uninterrupted, unmotivated bhakti has to be performed. The most essential part that we read yesterday was that Acharya Upasana, meaning you have to have a living guru who's guiding you through this process, who's holding your hands, figuratively speaking, helping you make progress spiritually. There was one item that talked about humility, amanitam. One day, Akbar decided to test his ministers. And we know if Akbar is there, Birbal is also there, right, in the story. So Akbar asked a simple question. He drew two parallel lines and he said, whoever can make one of the lines longer without lengthening it, I will consider them to be very intelligent. So you have two parallel lines, and the challenge is you have to make one line longer than the other without making any one of the lines longer, which means you cannot extend the line and say, okay, now it is longer. So the person who solved this problem or riddle that Akbar had given was Birbal. So he just came and he erased half of one of the lines. And by doing so, one of the lines had become bigger. So it is said, this is actually humility. Humility does not mean you have an inferiority complex. Humility simply means you are not the center of the attention for yourself or for anybody else. In the sense, humility does not mean you think of yourself that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough, you're so fallen, etc., etc. That is not humility. Humility is not even thinking about yourself, thinking about others. So in this case, when you shorten one line, automatically the other line has become longer, which means when you, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj says that when you glorify others, automatically you have taken the position of humbleness. Because to praise somebody else means to put yourself aside. Your attention is on the other person and you're glorifying that person. So Krishna, like this, talks about humility, pridelessness, non-violence, simplicity, tolerance, self-control, maintaining silence, aspiring to live in a sattvic place, uh, having that desire to search for the truth, not having any false ego, being detached from the material things, and being free from material relationships. So Krishna, like this, gives 20 items of knowledge, and then he ends that particular shloka by saying, anything else I consider to be ignorance. So how can you gain this 20 items of knowledge? Well, one is to constantly perform bhakti, and that begins with chanting. The second step is to take a spiritual master, accept a spiritual master in your life. Then from there you will gain that knowledge. So this is actually humility. So the 13th chapter that we've looked at, it's a little bit of a tough chapter. But again, dwelling on the thought of humility, we can look at a few more pastimes because that'll help us understand what this is. When Narada Muni defines Bhakti Yoga, he says, Hrishikena, Hrishikesha, Hrishikena, Sevanam Bhakti Ruchite. Hrishikena, Hrishikesha, Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. Hrishikena means Narada Muni is saying, how do you perform bhakti? By using all of your 8 senses, your 5 gross senses, and also your mind, intelligence, and false ego. Hrishikena means we have to serve the master of the senses. So you use all your senses to serve the master of the senses, who is Krishna. Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. When you offer service to Krishna, that is the topmost. That's the best way in which you can perform bhakti. So bhakti does not mean just sitting in one corner and doing bhajan. Like we read one of the shlokas where Prahlad Maharaj is saying, I have come across, I know there are certain saints who care only about themselves, so they go out and meditate in the Himalayas. But what about all the other souls? They are going to save themselves and forget everybody else. So who's going to save the other souls? So Prahlad says, no, I can't do that. No. So there is one Vaishnava scholar by the name Rupa Narayan. This was during the time where the Goswamis were living in Vrindavan. The Goswamis were all disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Kali Yuga avatar of Krishna. So this scholar called Rupa Narayan, his tendency was to go challenge other holy people and debate them. In those days, debate was one way in which you establish the superiority of the philosophy that you propound or you support. And it is said the rule of the game is that whoever gets defeated, they will then accept the other person's philosophy to be true because they could not defend their own philosophy that they follow. So he had this habit of going around and challenging other Babajis and Swamijis to a debate. And so this Rupa Narayan approaches Srila Rupa Goswami, an exalted Vaishnava and devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has written many books that we study in ISKCON, including Nectar of Instruction and Nectar of Devotion, Upadeshamrita and Bhakti Rasamrita. Such beautiful books he has written to explain bhakti. So this Rupa Narayan comes to Rupa Goswami and he says, I hear that you are a great scholar. I'd love to debate you. And Rupa Goswami, if you go to Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami actually carves the Radha Damodar deities and hands it to his disciple and nephew by the name Jiva Goswami. So he personally carves the deities of Shri Radha Damodar and gives it to the other exalted Vaishnava who happens to be his nephew and also a Goswami called Jiva Goswami. And so Rupa Goswami thought, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given me so many instructions. I'm certainly not going to waste my time debating somebody who's just looking for a certificate. So he said, look, we don't need to debate. I will accept that you are greater than me yet your logic, your philosophy, everything is perfect. I'll give you a certificate without debating. Because the mood of Rupa Goswami was, he recognized that this person was only interested in winning titles. He was not really interested in Shastra. So he gives him a certificate without even debating him. So Rupa Narayan thought, oh, see, without any competition, um, the greatest of all scholars in Vrindavan has acknowledged that I am greater than him. So like this, Rupa Narayan was feeling very proud. And he goes by the Yamuna river. And meantime, Jiva Goswami has heard the news that his beloved spiritual master, his uncle Rupa Goswami, has issued a certificate to Rupa Narayan. So he gets very upset. So when he sees Rupa Narayan, he tells him, my dear sir, I would love to debate you. I am a disciple of Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Narayan was thinking, why, if I have defeated the guru, then certainly I can defeat the disciple. So they both debate, and Rupa Narayan gets defeated by Jiva Goswami. Then Rupa Narayan recognizes that if the student has defeated me and he's so brilliant, then I can only imagine how brilliant the teacher must be. So feeling a little remorseful, he goes back to Rupa Goswami and he falls at his feet and he says, please forgive me for challenging you to a debate. I was just defeated by your most glorious disciple, Jiva Goswami. So I accept that you are superior to me. You're a great scholar. Because if your student is such a great scholar that he could easily defeat me, then certainly you as his spiritual master must be an even greater scholar. Now, do you think Rupa Goswami was happy to hear this? That his student and his nephew, Jiva Goswami, had defeated Rupa Narayan? No, he was not happy. He was very upset with Jiva Goswami. He called him and he said, get out of Vrindavan. You don't belong here. Quite a harsh thing to say to your disciple and to your nephew. So again, you don't challenge your spiritual master. If your spiritual master says leave, you just pack your bags and leave. So Jiva Goswami leaves and he goes somewhere on the outskirts and lives in a cave, doesn't eat, doesn't drink. He decides, better for me to die. since I have disappointed and upset my spiritual master. It's not worth for me to live. So, so Jiva Goswami is disappeared from Vrindavan. But later on, Rupa Goswami's older brother, Sanatana Goswami, also a disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes to Rupa Goswami and gently chastises him. He says, you have to go bring Jiva Goswami back because you are not living what you're preaching. So, older brother told the younger brother, you are not living what you're preaching. Where is the compassion? So he tries to explain that Jiva Goswami did not defeat Rupa Narayan because he was proud. He wanted to protect and defend your honor as a spiritual master. So it is a disciple's duty to defend their spiritual master if they can. If somebody defeats them, then they have to protect their spiritual master's reputation. So all he wanted to do was establish the supremacy of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. For that, why did you just banish him from Vrindavan? So yes, so he gets Jiva Goswami back. So even Guru Shishya relationship is inconceivable. You can't understand the intimacy of the relationship between pure devotees and their pure disciples as well. Humility also suggests that you are ready to surrender to whatever it is that the Lord has planned for you. So there is a beautiful pastime of Kaliya Leela in the Bhagavatam, where Kaliya's wives, when the Lord is dancing on the 1,000 hoods of Kaliya, and as the Lord is dancing, all of the poison comes out of Kaliya. And Kaliya is almost at the point of death. Then the wives come, they prostrate themselves before the Lord, and they tell the Lord, we know our husband is very envious, and he's a rascal. He deserves to be punished. We understand that you're punishing him. But if you kill him, then we will be forced to live with other snakes. That'll make our life difficult. So they tell the Lord, please spare the life of Kaliya. Yes, he may be a rascal, he may be envious, he may be proud, he may have so many negative qualities, but still he's our husband. So once they make the statement, then later on they tell the Lord, we've expressed our desire, but my dear Lord, only you know what is best for both us as well as Kali. So you please do as per what your desire is. So this is actually a nice way of praying, Actually in ISKCON they teach you that the correct and proper way to pray is to say, my dear Lord, if it so pleases you, or if it is your desire, and then you ask for what is it that you want. So in that sense, you're not ordering the Lord or demanding from the Lord. You're making a request and telling the Lord, if you feel this is going to help me spiritually, then, ultimately you're telling the Lord, you're going to do what you're going to do. Who am I to tell you and instruct you? So we're not here to instruct the Lord how to protect us or what to do for us. The Lord already knows. But does that mean that you should not ask? You should ask, because that is how you develop a relationship with the Lord. is to express your joy and express your sorrow also to him and say, it's a tough situation. I don't know what to do. Please guide me. Please protect me. Help me. This is the way. So this 13th chapter, the Lord has analyzed Prakriti, Purusha, and also Paramatma. Purusha, there are two Purushas. One Purusha is the Jivatma, and the other Purusha is Param Purusha, who is Paramatma. So essentially, the 13th chapter is setting the stage. So if the Atma is just experiencing all of this, even though the Atma is Satchidananda, then why does the Atma experience suffering? That is the question. To answer that question, Krishna introduces the topic of the three gunas. So Krishna says it's these three gunas that are constantly influencing and trying to control the jivatmas. So now in this 14th chapter, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, the three modes, in the translation in English is the three modes of material nature. So Prakriti consists of Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. So the Guna avatars, the Sattva-guna avatar is Lord Vishnu, the Rajaguna avatar is Lord Brahma, and the avatar representing Tamoguna is Lord Shiva. Now that does not mean Lord Shiva is under the influence of Tamogun, or that Lord Brahma is under the influence of Rajagun. But in order to create, you need passion, and Rajagun depicts passion. In order to be non-violent, humble, tolerant, you need Sattvagun in you. And that is represented by Lord Vishnu. Similarly, if you want to destroy, even if you try to destroy yourself, you end up destroying others, or if you try to destroy others, you end up destroying yourself also. That requires you to go into the mode of Tamogun. So in today's chapter, we're actually going to take a closer look at these three gunas. So there is a relationship between Jivatma and Paramatma. The question is, why is the Atma suffering? And what are these three gunas? How does it influence us? And if it is influencing me so strongly, is there a way that I can come out of the influence of the three gunas? That's the question. So the 14th chapter can be divided into 4 broad sections. The three gunas, how they are competing with each other to dominate you, how you tend to act because of the influence of these three gunas. And the most important section, Krishna telling us, it is these three gunas that are keeping you in jail. Remember, yesterday's single word summary was Paramatma, who is acting as an attorney, ready to guide you, protect you, take you, lead you out of jail. But Paramatma also has to explain to you, what is this jail cell made of? So the prison bars are 3 bars, the Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamogun. So how can you break down these 3 bars and come to the state that is called the Shuddha Sattva state? Because in that state, you can go back to Krishna. So we're going to go to the 9th shloka in the 14th chapter, where the Lord is saying, Sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajah karmani bharata jnanamavrityatutamaha pramade sanjayatyuta. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness. That means Krishna is saying, if you are under the influence of Sattvagun, then you will experience happiness all the time. If you are under the influence of Rajagun, Krishna says, passion conditions one to fruitive action. Remember, we said Rajagun means you want to create. So you're chasing something. So that makes you very active. You're always busy doing something, project after project after project, idea after idea after idea. And ignorance, covering one's knowledge, binds one to madness. So Krishna is very, in a short capsule, Krishna is telling you what are the effects of the three gunas on you. So now, what is the obvious question you have here, or rather you should have? What is wrong with Sattvagun? If Sattvagun can make me happy, what is wrong with Sattvagun? If passion makes me chase things and ignorance will end up making me very ignorant and perhaps even going down to the position of being completely mad. So to us, it seems very clear that Sattvagun is the best option for us. But Krishna is saying even Sattvagun is like your jail cell. So imagine if you've been thrown in jail and you're very happy that you've got a first class prison cell with TV and other nice comforts. But there are different kinds of cells in this jail. But you seem to be happy being in a comfortable jail cell. So that is Krishna's point to wake us up. He's saying, don't forget you're in jail. Just because your ankles are tied with golden shackles or golden chains doesn't mean you're experiencing bliss. Because this kind of happiness is short-lived. It is temporary. Dukhalayam ashashvatam, Krishna has already said. So let's look at these three modes. So this is Sattvagun, very peaceful, calm, meditative, doesn't get easily agitated. Rajagun, oh, you get agitated very easily. You're running around, you're hyperactive. Tamogun, you are fundamentally mad. So let's just look at a simple example of a story. So there are three thieves who have stolen something from a person who was traveling through the forest. So each of them is in a different mood or mode. One of them says, come on, we've got what we wanted from him, let's kill him. The second person says, why do you want to kill him? We anyway have stolen everything from him. We'll just tie him up here in the forest. And so the three people shared the wealth and went away. The third person comes back and unties the thief and tells the thief, look, we have put you in the middle of the forest. We're sure you don't know how to get home. I will be happy to take you home. Please come. And the person who was robbed was so happy that this person actually came back and released him and now is promising to take him home. Once they get close to the house, the person who was robbed is telling this thief, you please come home. I'm so happy. We can have a nice dinner. I'll ask my wife to cook some nice food stuff. And the thief says, no. It's time for me to go. So the person who said, let's kill him, because we've got what we wanted his wealth. That's a person who really cannot discriminate between right and wrong. Therefore, the suggestion of killing somebody. So certainly that person was perhaps under the influence of Tamagun. The person who said, no, don't kill. It's not necessary to kill. But let's definitely take the wealth from him. This person is in Rajagun because he wants the wealth, but he does not want the sin that comes with killing someone. The third person did not want the sin of even tying up somebody and leaving them in the forest. So he comes back to rescue that person, untie him and set him free, and also take him back to his house. So you see, the three gunas, it influences the way you think, the way you act, your philosophy, your value system, your behavior, your attitude, your practices. So Krishna is going to give some quick examples of how these three gunas are actually influencing us. And they're doing it constantly. You're not even aware that you are under the influence of the three gunas. So, for example, somebody who leads a very simple life, who is happy with whatever little income that they're getting, as long as it's able to feed the family, clothe the family, and provide shelter, so that the rest of the time that they're able to practice bhakti, spend time together as a family. You could say such a family, such a couple, you could say is certainly leading a sattvic life because they've made room for spirituality. But unfortunately, once you move to a larger city like Bengaluru or Kolkata, then things are not that simple anymore. Life has become very complex. So a couple may both be working. The husband may be traveling 2 hours one way to reach his job. He can't stand his job, but he loves the money. So he thinks as long as the money is coming, I will just have to tolerate my boss, have to tolerate the work environment. So that means this family does not even have any time for each other on a daily basis. They're always in a hurry. They've outsourced everything. They each, although living under the same roof, seem to be leading separate lives. But they all have their frustrations. They have a lot of misunderstandings because there's so much stress in city life. But they decide, okay, once a year, twice a year, we will take our vacation so we can recover from this hard slogging. So you take a vacation and then you come back and you return back to the exact same thing that you were doing before. So you could say such a family, although they are materially prospering, spiritually maybe they are going to the temple once a month. But they do it more as a ritual and not as a daily spiritual practice. So certainly this is very Rajasic life. Actually, Prabhupada says city life is Rajasic life. You're just running. So much work to do, so much tension. This is city life. And of course, the worst kind is, a very tamasic relationship where drugs, alcohol, violence, all of this is involved in a relationship. There is always fighting. There is always a blame game. But at the same time, they cannot quit each other. And so they continue to lead a miserable life out of total ignorance. So somehow or the other, they are able to make ends meet, but neither party is happy or satisfied. But at the same time, because they are so covered with tamogun, they don't make any effort to try and find a better way of life. And certainly spirituality is not part of the equation at all. So if we want to lead a sattvic life, then one of the things that we have to learn to do is to change a few of our habits. And one of the first habits is to wake up early in the morning. So the earlier you wake up, the better off. The Brahma Muhurta time is 1 hour and 45 minutes before sunrise. So if you wake up before then you are considered to be not just in Sattvagun, But if you are doing your spiritual sadhana, at that time, then you are considered to be in the Shuddha Sattva state, and we'll describe what that is because Krishna is going to give us the solution. So, just to give you an example of what Krishna is saying, and also examples from our day to day life, that will help tell you which guna you are under the influence of. So, if you look at books, maybe biographies, something that is inspiring would be more attractive to somebody who's under the influence of Sattva Guna. Such a person, also from a job perspective, they are very careful about what kind of job they select. So they may opt for teaching, although teaching itself is a stressful job these days. And the time of day that is most productive for a person under the influence of Sattva Guna is from early morning to 12 noon. And even the food habits are dictated by the guna. So vegetarian food, wholesome food, healthy foods, they're all considered sattvic. So there is a, stress on sattvic food. Krishna himself tells us what kind of foods we should eat if you want to be in sattva guna. So for a person who's under the influence of Rajagun, they may prefer science fiction, horror movies, scary movies, because all of their senses need to be taken away from their troubles. And for them, any job that is paying a lot of money is very good, because for them, money is honey. And ugra karma, or very, very rajasic activity, is done from noon to 8 p.m. Actually, yesterday I was listening to some lecture, and in that the Prabhuji says that when Prabhupada found out that in the Western world, when he went to United States, people were waking up early in the morning at 4, 5 o'clock and driving to work for 1, 2 hours so that they can reach their work by 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock. So that means Prabhupada understood that such people were certainly not focusing on any sadhana or spirituality. And Prabhupada said, factories are very rajasic. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of activity, etc., etc. And Prabhupada was shocked that in the United States, some of the factories are running 24/7. So people work in shifts, and many women, men work the night shift, which is very bad for health. But anyway, Ugra Karma time is done from when the sun is right overhead at 12 noon all the way to 8 p.m. And those people who are very active, who are always running around, they prefer foods that are either too spicy, too salty, too bitter, too hot, like that. Tamogun means you probably spend a lot of time on websites that have filthy content or dirty content. You're probably engaged in drinking alcohol, maybe even doing drugs. And for you, the best time of the day, because you are in Tamogun, is when everybody else is asleep, you are awake. So from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., you are wide awake. And you have a tendency to sleep during the daytime. This is Tamogun. And food that is spoiled. When Krishna says food that is spoiled means it includes all your non-vegetarian foods. It also includes untouchable foods like garlic and onion, because garlic has a very noxious smell. Onion also is not that pleasant. So now Krishna is talking about the impact of these gunas on people. Because Krishna says, because somebody's, now remember we said even Sattvagun is like a jail cell. It's just a fancier jail cell for you. All your comforts are taken care of, so you don't complain. But Krishna says, because of being very self-satisfied, because he is happy that everything is going well in his life, he does not obey the orders of the Supreme Soul. Why does he not obey? Because he thinks everything is going fine. Why should I practice any austerity or, wake up early in the morning, this, that, and the other? Life is just fine. Nobody's troubling me. I'm not troubling anybody. So I don't need anything else. I just want to maintain the standard of living. Therefore, even Sattva Gun is like a jail cell because you're not trying to get out of jail. You're comfortable in the jail cell. So Krishna would say, this is quite foolish. If you're under the influence of Rajagun, because you're so engrossed in fulfilling all of your desires, you can't even hear Paramatma asking you from within you, what are you doing with your life? You can't hear that conscience calling out to you saying, what kind of life are you living? Are you sure this is the life that you want to live? Because you're too busy. In Tamogun, because you're so ignorant and mad, you can't hear Paramatma because of your ignorance. Because your whole consciousness is covered up. So Krishna is talking about how the gunas are actually competing with each other to dominate you. So it's possible that when you wake up early in the morning, you're under the influence of Sattvagun. By the time the middle of the day comes around, Krishna says you could be under the influence of Rajagun. When the night time comes around, you may be engaging in some objectionable behavior. So then you're under the influence of Tamagun. So it's not like one person is only under the influence of one guna all the time. It's possible, but that's not what Krishna is saying here. Rajastamas chabi bhuya sattvam bhavati bharata rajas sattvam tamas chaiva tamas sattvam rajastata. So here Krishna is explaining how the gunas are fighting with each other to dominate you. Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance, O son of Bharata. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times, ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. So Krishna is saying these gunas are always trying to control you. So if you are under the influence of Sattva Gun, then maybe you have access to knowledge or information that is more conducive for you to advance spiritually. But if Rajagun increases, then you don't have time for contemplation. You don't have time to do your japa. Yeah. So you're constantly chasing your desires. And once one desire is satisfied, Krishna says one more desire comes up. And Krishna calls this a network of desires. It's like intertwined so tightly. You don't know when and how you can stop. Because you just keep feeding the desire, keep feeding the desire. It's like adding ghee to a fire and expecting the fire to be put out. The more ghee you add to the fire, the more difficult it is for you to put the fire out. So this is the problem. And of course, Tamogun, you really don't know what you're doing. And later on, the 17th chapter, Krishna will explain, you will think right is wrong and wrong is right. You will reject whatever God says. You will just invent whatever you want. These are some of the challenges of being under the influence of Tamogun because you don't have the discriminatory power. So, of course, if thoughts come into your mind to do things that are going to take you away from Krishna, then trying to restrain your senses from following through could be a good way to avoid the problem, but still it is not the solution. So now Krishna is saying, what is the destination? First, Krishna has said, what are the habits of such people? Then what activities they engage in. Now, because of the activities they engage in, where do they go? Because all of us have to have a destination that we're going to. So here Krishna is saying, Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha, madhye tishthanti rajasaha, jaganya guna vrittistha, adho gachanti tamasaha. So here Krishna is saying, if you are predominantly under the influence of sattva, you are leading generally a very pious life. Then Krishna says your destination is you're going to go to Swargaloka, heavenly planets where all the demigods reside. That's the destination for those who do a lot of pious activities. What's the destination for the person who is predominantly under the influence of Rajagun? Krishna says you'll take birth again in the middle planetary systems because the earthly planet is the planet where you can satisfy a lot of your desires. And those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down into the hellish worlds. So if you're predominantly under the influence of Tamogun, Krishna is saying you will be sent to the lower planetary systems where the consciousness is much lower. So Krishna is telling you the destination if you are predominantly under the influence of one of the three gunas. That means every day, the way we are leading our life, we are already making a decision what body we are going to take and where we are going to be. That means you yourself are deciding your next body. Well, technically speaking, your activities are deciding your destination, but your desires is going to decide your body, and that body is decided and given to you by Prakriti. That means all three gunas are a trap. If you go to heavenly planetary systems, it's like a very luxurious jail cell. You live for a long life. You don't get old, you don't get disease, but you have to die in the higher planetary systems. So this whole Brahmanda is called Martyaloka, Mrityaloka, meaning we all have to die one day. So coming back to Srimad Bhagavatam, this is from the 11th canto, the 20th chapter, the 17th shloka. Nidehamadyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam guru karnadharam mayanukulena nabhasvateritam puman bhavadbhim nataret sa atmaha. Suicide. The soul cannot commit suicide. But that's what the shloka is saying. The human body, which can award all benefit in life, is automatically obtained by the laws of nature, although it is a very rare achievement. So to take human birth is very rare. This human body can be compared to a perfectly constructed boat, having the spiritual master as the captain and the instructions of the personality of Godhead as favorable winds, impelling it on its course. So the analogy of a boat is being used in Srimad Bhagavatam here. So this human body is this boat. The person steering the boat should be the spiritual master who acts as the captain. And the Lord has sent you all of these instructions. If you follow those instructions, then they are like favorable winds that will take you to the shore. So the boat is human life. The captain of the boat is having a spiritual master in your life who's guiding you, who's steering you in the right direction. And all of us following the instructions of the Lord are like the favorable winds that moves the boat in the right direction. Considering all these advantages, a human being who does not utilize his human life to cross the ocean of material existence must be considered the killer of his own soul, Atmaha. In the sense, how are we killing the soul? Because in the second chapter, Krishna has said you cannot kill the soul. You cannot cut it, you cannot burn it, you cannot wet it, you cannot burn it. So in what way are we killing the soul? Because in second chapter, Krishna said we cannot kill the soul. So in this particular shloka, when it says killing of the soul, what does that mean? Does anybody know what the shloka is actually trying to tell us?
You are killing yourself.
But what are you killing?
Because you are getting into other gunas, no? Tamasic guna or rajasic guna.
Mm.
So you are inculcating habit of these gunas instead of sattvic guna.
Mm. Okay. Good points. Thank you, Pradeep.
I presume I have no idea.
We'll see. We'll come to the answer shortly. Does anybody else have any other thoughts? What does it mean that such a person is killing his own soul? Because soul is Satchidananda. So how can the soul be killed? Anybody has the answer? How can the soul be killed? What does that shloka mean?
Conditioning of body.
We are torturing the soul by allowing the soul to go lower down in the species and go into lower animal forms by not taking advantage of the human form. So that particular Jivatma that has not taken advantage of a human form and started performing bhakti, they are literally torturing their soul and committing spiritual suicide. So here, Atmaha means the soul has the best opportunity to go back to the spiritual world when the soul is residing in a human body. But if we allow our mind and intelligence to dictate what is right and wrong without consultation of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, then practically you are torturing your own soul. You are reducing its chances of going back to God. In that way, you are committing Atmaha. You are killing the opportunity for the soul to practice bhakti. Remember, yesterday we said, for the body, we have to do what the body requires. But for the soul also, you have to do what the soul needs. The soul wants a relationship with Krishna. And so you have to give the soul what it wants. That's the food for the soul. The food for the soul is a relationship with Krishna. So that means death is not an end to your suffering. Because your next birth, whether you're going to get a human form or not, is not guaranteed unless you have performed some bhakti. Then human form is guaranteed. So if you've understood this, that death is not the end of your suffering. It will just continue. Your suffering will just pick up in your next life. It will take a different shape, form, all of that. So that means if you've understood this, that human form is so rare, that is why we are bringing these classes to you. Because Krishna is saying human form is so rare. Don't waste the opportunity to come back to me. because you have the perfect vehicle to go back to God. So therefore, when you go to the airport, if you take the right flight, you can land in your destination. So the soul has already boarded the right flight. It has boarded a human form. That human form is meant to go back to God, to go local, and resume your services there. So how do you actually come to the Shuddha Sattva state? That is what the Lord is saying here. Gunan etanatityatriim dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityujjara dukkhaihi vimuktom mritamashnude. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So Krishna is saying, you can be blissful even in this life, not happy, blissful. If you're in touch with Krishna, you're in a blissful state. If you're performing bhakti every day, if you're chanting every day, if you're reading here every day, if you're hearing every day, especially during the early morning hours, you will see what a huge difference it makes in your life. When you wake up early, you do your japa, you hear some harikatha, and you begin your day just, it's like you're floating on air. Many devotees will tell you this. You will experience this. Therefore, Krishna is saying, you don't have to wait to come to the spiritual world to do bhakti. You start doing bhakti here. Here itself, you will experience me, and of course, I will come and pick you up in due time. So, life can be very nectarian if you're practicing Krishna consciousness. So, instead of worrying about what we don't have, what will come in the future, will it come or not, rather we should focus our attention on doing bhakti. So in the 26th shloka, Krishna is giving us the final solution. How to transcend the three gunas. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Krishna is saying, the minute you start doing japa, the minute you start worshipping Tulasi, the minute you start offering me bhoga every day, the minute you honor prasadam every day, the minute you take up some seva in the temple or services towards the other Vaishnavas, all of these steps puts you in touch with me, and very easily you can overcome the influence of the three gunas, and simply by serving Krishna and his disciples, you can also go back to the spiritual world. So this is important for us. So again, Krishna is concluding that bhakti is the only way where you can overcome the influence of these three gunas. So we'll stop here. Any questions you have on this 14th chapter? About the three gunas. So we can actually come to a few examples that may make better sense. So if you look at this picture here, Karna had a lot of good qualities. But what was his one problem? Bad association. He just clung on to Duryodhana. Even though Krishna told him, switch sides, come and fight on this side. But because of his deep attachment to somebody who was evil, he himself also paid a heavy price. Yeah. So sometimes even if you demonstrate good qualities, just hanging out with the wrong crowd can determine your destination in your next life. So we have to be very, very careful. So like that, even Hanumanji expressed his anger. But he does so for the pleasure of Lord Ram. So, but he was not the one who started the fire. It was the evil people of Ravana who set his tail on fire. Right? So, even Rajogun can be used in the service of the Lord. Yeah. And then, of course, here we have Jada Bharat. Jada Bharat is a pure devotee of the Lord. It is his third birth. His first birth, he was King Bharat. In his second birth, he was a deer because he got attached to the deer. In his third birth, he said, let me just completely cut off from society. Let me hide my sattva-gun. So nobody will trouble me. I can just stay focused on my sadhana. So in spite of what all was going all around the world around him, externally he looked like a madman. He was dressed like a madman. But internally he was very pure. So such a person is called an avadut. There are some pure devotees. I remember somebody came to the temple and messaged me actually a couple of weeks ago saying, have you met any pure devotees? I would like to meet them. That was his desire. I said, yeah, there are many pure devotees, but definitely none of the pure devotees would advertise themselves and say, here I am, come and meet me. Pure devotee always hide themselves. So I know personally that I've heard that in Vrindavan, there are many pure devotees, there are rasiks. But if you meet them, they'll be, they may not be dressed well, but they are great jnanis, great souls, great bhakts of the Lord. So pure devotees keep their devotion to the Lord hidden. So it's hard to spot them. But they are there. So especially those devotees, externally they may not be taking care of themselves in terms of cleanliness and all of that. They may even appear mad to you. But internally, only another pure soul can recognize that that's a pure devotee. Okay. Any questions? Pradeep, Prabhu, you have any questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to know how to overcome the anger in family. We stay in family, so that guna, how to overcome that?
Well, anger arises because you have expectations, and when those expectations are not met, you are disappointed, and that tends to lead to anger among family members, because expectations are there. Whether the expectations are right or wrong, that does not matter. The fact that we have expectations means if somebody doesn't meet those expectations, we get angry, we get disappointed, and that stresses us out. Because the simplest solution to anger is to wake up early in the morning and chant like 8 to 10 malas in the morning. It's very difficult to be angry when you're in touch with the Lord. anger is also influenced by the person who's cooking. If the person cooking is angry, then that person's qualities are entering especially into the grains that are being cooked, like rice and dal and all these grains. They tend to absorb the person's energy that is actually cooking. That is why once you really come into spiritual life, you will reduce eating out, especially restaurant food, because you don't know what is the mood of the cook. If the cook is upset or angry or jealous or envious, Krishna says this acts in a very subtle way on our consciousness. You may think, what is the big deal? It is just cooked food. No, with cooked food, you have to be very careful. You can go out and have salad if you want, because there's less karmic reactions in cut fruits or cut vegetables. But cooked grains carry a lot of karma. Cooked grains also carry the emotions and the vibrations of the person who's cooking. So even the person cooking matters. There was one great saint who was invited to a king's assembly. And the king, really venerated this holy person, told them, please stay here. I need your company. I need your association. It'll help cleanse my consciousness. And so the saint happened to stay over one night. And the next morning, the saint bid goodbye to the king and went home. And somehow or the other, he had stolen something from the king's palace. And of course, the king was furious as to who had stolen some precious jewelry. It happened to be the saint who had slept there. So then an announcement goes out saying, whoever has stolen this jewelry, if it is not returned to the king, they'll be put to death right away. So eventually the saint goes back to the king and returns the jewelry. And the king says, no way, somebody else stole. You are just coming and accepting the blame for no particular reason. And the saint said, no, I did steal. And the king said, but how is that possible? You're so well versed in scriptures, you do so much bhajan, you do so much sadhana. To which the saint said, I have eaten grains cooked by somebody who is not in Shuddha Sattva state. So because I honored that food that was served to me, it immediately impacted my consciousness. Actually, devotees who have not eaten out for a long time, they don't go to restaurants, they don't buy ready-made foods. They only eat home food that is offered to the Lord and they honor it as prasadam. They will tell you that if one day they're traveling or something happens and they are forced to eat outside food, of course, they make sure they don't have anything that they're not supposed to have. They will tell you that that day their mind was troubled. They were restless. They felt stressed out suddenly. So only those who eat only home food that is offered to the Lord, sattvic food that is offered to the Lord. Suddenly one day you eat restaurant food, you will clearly see the difference in your consciousness. So if you want to avoid getting angry, one is to focus your time and efforts on chanting. Two is to ask yourself who's cooking and are you eating outside food regularly? So that is why there is a saying, if the woman of the house is happy, the whole house is happy. If the woman of the house is miserable because she's the one who's invariably cooking, everybody also is miserable. So it's very important to make sure in a reasonable way that the mother or the wife is in a good mood when they're cooking, not to get into unnecessary arguments and back and forth because that anger is going straight into the food when it's being cooked. Yeah. So yeah.
Even while eating also, we should keep quiet. No? There
Yes.
should not be argument.
Yes, yes. When you're eating, don't be in front of the mobile, don't be in front of the laptop, because all of this creates interference. So the food does not get absorbed very nicely in the body if you are sitting and eating in front of the TV, in front of the screen, in front of the mobile. You should honor your prasadam in silence with reverence so that it's really good for your body. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Krishna.
Very good. Any other questions? Yes, Sundar.
Madam, why should we read only Bhagavad Gita as it is, not any other Gita?
Okay. Yes, there are many other Gitas. You want to read the Bhagavad Gita that has commentary, right? Otherwise, Bhagavad Gita is identical, right? The shloka in Sanskrit, the chapters. Very, very minor variations may be there. But to understand the shloka, an acharya has to have written commentary. That acharya himself has to read the commentary of his predecessor acharyas before he writes commentary on that book. So the Gita that you can read are the ones that are written by acharyas, not by anybody else, not a politician, not a novelist, not somebody else who is very creative and tries all kinds of interpretations of the shloka. That is very dangerous. So that Guru Shishya Parampara should be there, should be retained. So for example, when Srila Prabhupada writes his purports, he has referenced the commentary of the Parampara Acharyas like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, his own spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In Bhagavatam, he has referenced the commentary of Sridhara Swami or Baladev Vidya Bhushan. So you always rely on commentary written by other pure devotees. If a non-devotee writes commentary on Bhagavad Gita, can you imagine how disturbing it will be to your consciousness? Because if they've not heard or learned at the lotus feet of a spiritual master, they have no business writing commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Prabhupada warns us not to read any and all Bhagavad Gita, because a lot of people may have ulterior motives, so they'll choose to interpret Krishna's instructions in a way that is convenient for them. So in that, there is a great danger. So as best as possible, you stick to the Bhagavad Gita where the author is genuinely a devotee of Krishna. And he comes in the Guru Parampara system that worships Krishna. So imagine an atheist writing commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. What a terrible massacre that would be of Krishna's words. Right? So yes, you can read Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, because there is no interpretation. We are simply telling you exactly what Krishna is saying. Nothing is diluted, nothing is added. So Prabhupada says, a genuine spiritual master will be like a postman. What does the postman do? He picks up the letter and delivers it to where it needs to go. He does not open the letter, interpret it, rewrite it, modify it. He does not do that. So the postman's job is to simply deliver what he has received. Therefore, a genuine Acharya will simply deliver the instructions of Krishna exactly as they are meant to be followed. He will not add his own interpretations on top of it. Therefore, Prabhupada has named the book Bhagavad Gita as it is, exactly as what Krishna meant to say, wanted to say, and wanted us to follow.
What about Gorakhpur Bhagavad Gita?
I do not know who has written the commentary. This Gorakhpur
I
Press.
think Surdashi, something like that.
In
Fine.
Gorakhpur, there is 3 people have written it. One is Jaydayal Goenka, one is Ramsukdas ji, and three things are available.
I see. So you can check, have they learned all of this from their guru? And they are basing their commentary on a bona fide parampara? That you have to take a call.
I used to read only Shankara, Ramanuja, and Madhva. But in that also, if I see Shankara, he will not mention Vishnu, Krishna, nothing.
Correct.
Nothing will be there. So if you will be left with some dry word jugglery. Word jugglery is there.
Yes.
I am a Sri Vaishnava, so I have to read only Ramanuja commentary.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
when I go and read Shankara, Madhva is okay. Madhva, Hari, at least he'll mention some Puranas and Hari, Vishnu and all. But if you read Shankaracharya, there will be no mention of Vishnu, Krishna, nothing. Nothing will be there.
Yes. I've not read Adi Shankaracharya's commentary, so I really do not know. But yeah, I can understand why, because their philosophical bent was very different. And at the time that he would have written the commentary, the circumstances on in Bharatavarsha was also different. So the commentary would have been directed towards the citizens as per what they needed to hear at that time. Yes. Okay. Any further questions? So tomorrow is another interesting chapter. It's a short chapter. Ah, yes. What is the single word summary today?
The 3 gunas.
The bars, right? The 3 gunas that are trapping you here. Okay. So now Krishna has to tell us if these 3 bars are trapping us. He has already told us if you perform bhakti, you can overcome it. But let's say you do not want to perform bhakti. You want to follow some other process, the slow process. And if you want to start way at the bottom and slowly work your way upwards, that is what you're going to hear from Krishna tomorrow in the 15th chapter, which is called Purushottama Yoga. So join us tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining today. Vancha kalpatarupyascha kripa sindhuve evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Shri Shri Gauranga ki jai. Thank you, devotees. We will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.